Well, so we had today during the an interesting workshop clustering climate-related projects under the DRS call. Was the first time that some of these projects heard about other projects. They were projects that come from DG Home and projects that come from the Directorate RTD. So it was the first time that they were put together, had the opportunity to learn about what the other projects are doing. We started this morning with a presentation of the projects in which each one had the opportunity to describe what we were doing. And then we had interesting discussions about what were the opportunities for the projects to work together, exploiting synergies among them, and having a larger impact both towards policy makers and policy implementers. Daniel?
I think that one of the big conclusions that we can say is that this community of users and putting together all these projects show the strength that we have to go and step ahead and overcome the barriers we find all together in this subject of climate clustering and disaster resilient societies. One of the points that have been identified is that the data should be available and not in a normal way, but in an actionable way to allow that we can develop added value services behind this data. And this is one of the things that related to the climate services or the climate problems is more acute. And this is not at the hand of one single project, but of all our community. Also, the stakeholder involvement. The stakeholder involvement is perceived as really a crucial step ahead, and we are all together finding difficulties to really involve them actively in the definition of the projects, in the design phase, and of course on the roll-up of the implementations for the innovation. And one thing that should be done is to make an effort to make these institutions that have big problems to participate in the projects to be more easy for them to get involved as a crucial partners. And finally, we have explored opportunities to collaborate between projects. It's not always easy, but there is a number of things that can be done, sharing information, doing demonstrations, joint demonstrations of the projects, making some effort to do things that can be done together. And specifically, one of the points that we have found is at least we try to collaborate in developing one metric for benchmarking, allowing us to measure the added value and the efficiency of the proposed solutions and tools together. This will be a way to be stronger all together in front of the possibility of the innovation and going even to commercial solutions. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe just to add that one of the what we identified as a strength of the group that was gathered today is that there exists a big complementarity between the different approaches that the projects have, covering from climate adaptation to different phases of disaster risk management. This offers the group the possibility to provide a very wide vision and a wide range of solutions that can help to deal with climate resilience. One also of the outcomes and agreements of the group was developing a position paper in which they will present their different approach, their contribution from their own perspective, so they can speak with a common voice to the relevant stakeholders that they are addressing.
Yes, we were having very interesting discussions today and yesterday partly about networking, about synergy building in CBRN community. And to us, the goal of synergy is to organize heterogeneity of these CBRNE stakeholders and opinions by creating a structured link between national and European organizations representing public and private sectors, users and suppliers, under supervision of policymakers, defending the needs of each sector and each side and striving for the common interests and joint solutions. Of course, we tried to understand why such synergy is not yet perfect. Of course, there are some good breakthroughs, such as, for example, this community of users meetings, which contribute a lot to the synergies, to information exchange between the stakeholders. But still, and other initiatives has been done. For example, mapping of CBRN projects has been done. But still, synergies as themselves are still there is a long way to go. And we tried to see what are the current obstacles for synergies for different stakeholders. For example, from practitioners' side, we identified that the main concerns are lack of information about available research programs to join, about available technological solutions to test and use. Also, another problem is sticking by very often practitioners stick to existing practices and resist against innovation or innovative technologies or processes. Also, practitioners experience difficulty to share classified procedures, needs, and reveal their capability gaps. Another big concern is language. For example, for cross-border links, for exercises and other activities which presume international participation, a lot of communication with other stakeholders, it might be a challenge when practitioners sometimes speak only their native language. And another problem which was discussed, it is lack of time and dedication of organization of end users to dedicate really to for the links with the research and industry. Then from the research and industry side, also a number of obstacles was identified. For example, it is focusing only on known users with which companies are already used to collaborate, and they do not really have anybody else to access. Or another problem is too strict requirements for IPR protection, which needs to be taken into account. And the reluctance to involve users at early stage of development, which partly relates to IPR, because when one thing is when technology suppliers already offer or almost ready product or commercial product for users' feedback, the IPR issues do not come into place. But when it is on the very early stage of development, then it is more difficult. And then from the policy-making side and from local authority side, the problems what were identified, it is a lack of interest of the results in European Union projects. This was discussed this time and the previous community of users meeting, because indeed either the results for some reason are not interesting for local authorities, or we need to understand why they do not really express, why do not ask what is going on. And lack of information about current initiatives and projects in the country of the authorities or in other member states, they do not know about it a lot. So the recommendations and way forward, what we were thinking about, the main need, requirement, and prerequisite for successful synergy and collaboration, it is information. So raising awareness of all categories of stakeholders about available possibilities, capacities, capabilities, good practices, results, and those which are already available and which are possible to create. It is very important for all stakeholders to make it clear and transparent so that everybody is aware about. And we believe that all such plans and multidisciplinary exercises and research, they need to take into account the needs and interests of all actors, practitioners, suppliers, policymakers, and play on these common interests if they want to bring them together for common goals. Then we had a really interesting discussion about the upcoming project in Notice, which is a network of CBRN training centers, and it was concluded that training centers can be and actually must be used as a vehicle for stakeholder synergy and innovation, because training centers have all the necessary capability, facilities, infrastructures, resources, and knowledge, and they have access to various categories of practitioners. And also training professionals are the right people to train and educate practitioners for new innovative technologies, to compare different technological solutions, taking into account all the operational, functional, performance, and material requirements of the practitioners, and as well as ethical and legal issues which shall be considered during the development and use of the innovative technologies. What was also discussed, what is interesting, is that innovations, it seems, depend on enthusiasm of individual people much more than on processes. But if we can define the processes clearly, but which can support them to come together, then the main need in synergies is to identify the mechanisms, the processes that can bring people together naturally with common goals and interests. And such new initiatives, current initiatives in CBRN, such as Encircle project and the Notice project, they bring a lot of active contribution to this goal. So we need to create an environment favorable to the emergence of synergies, of networks, allowing for collaborative innovation and management culture. And we need to analyze and promote the best practices and the good examples of such synergies. So we believe that when something works, and it works well, everybody better knows about it. We need to distribute this information to all stakeholders, to practitioners, to suppliers, to policymakers, to all authorities, so that people see that it works, that it is possible, that it is feasible, which is really inspiring. Then, for users' organization, the recommendation is to have, probably, if it is possible, to have a dedicated staff, maybe an individual employee or a whole research department who would facilitate the links with the technology suppliers, with the research, who would be aware of the existing research and development initiatives, what programs to join, what funding possibilities exist. But for this, they have to be aware of it. There should be somebody who is taking care of this in the end user organization, while currently it is very difficult for them. Of course, end users have their duties, they are busy, they have no time to spend for such things, but if there is a need to involve them more actively in their research and in development projects and funding schemes, we need to provide them such a possibility. And it was discussed that, for example, local authorities might support end user organizations in this and create such positions and fund such positions, helping end user organizations to go forward with it. And also, in order to facilitate the synergies, the idea is to create a practical example. For example, to take a capability gap as a model and see what stakeholders would be needed to fill this gap, what end users would be needed, what technology must be accepted to fill this gap, what would be the legal and ethical issues corresponding to it. When we discuss here very often about some examples which are in mind of every participant in particular, it is of course understandable. Everybody keeps in mind his own practice, his own stuff. But if we take a common example, like playing together a common scenario, it might help everybody to concentrate on a particular example and to imagine a practical situation and see what would be the soft model of the best practice for this for the synergy, like a modelization, what will work, what will not work. This sort of exercise we propose for future community of users meeting. And besides that, also for the CoU meetings, and recommendation would be to not only present the projects and the current initiatives, which is already very helpful actually, but also to facilitate the actual action between these initiatives, because we are aware of the fragmentation at the CBRN market, not only at the market of all these stakeholders. Different initiatives appear, some new centers of excellence, some new projects. They sometimes are not aware of existing of other similar initiatives, or simply do not establish any links with them. But the idea is to facilitate this link so that new emerging initiatives would establish the links with the existing ones to fight the fragmentation and to joint efforts for synergy.
Ok, merci beaucoup.